What is going on, guys? In today's video, I will show you the top 3 best greatsword builds in Throne and Liberty. So at the start, I will give you a quick overview of each build, then I will explain what skills and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well, we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it. And then finally, we will go over the weapon masteries, stats, your skill rotations, and even what guardian should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. So moving over to the first build, which is the greatsword and dagger. At first, this build may seem just like another bruiser. However, thanks to passive skills like Vital Force and Cold Warrior, its damage output can be very high. And once you fully complete it, in the endgame, this setup can reach over 300 skill damage boost and 500 heavy attack chance. So by combining our increased damage from greatsword skills with the increased critical hit and critical damage from dagger skills, will turn us into a deadly machine. So in short, we will be doing incredible amount of damage for a melee player. So let's take a look at our setup. And first of all, we have our skills. So for defensive skill, we use Block Blade, while for active skills, we get Stunning Blow, Cleaving Moonlight, Valiant Brawl, Brutal Incision, Inject Venom, Guillotine Blade, Umbral Spirit, Fatal Sigma, Death Blow, Wheelbreaker, Gaia Crash, and Da Vinci's Courage. Because of specialization skills, we'll have Brutal Incision turn into Thundercloud's Bombing, then Inject Venom will turn into the Lightning Infusion, then Umbral Spirit will turn into the Thunder Spirit, and finally Gaia Crash will turn into Frost Cleaving. And then for passive skills, we get Destructive Fang, Assassin's Instincts, Wrathful Edge, Vital Force, Cold Warrior, Victor's Morale, Robust Constitution, and Murderous Energy. Next we have skill specialization, and for Stunning Blow we get cooldown reduction and damage increase. Then for Valiant Brawl, get the damage increase. Then for Inject Venom, get Lightning Infusion. Then for Umbral Spirit, select Thunder Spirit. Then for Death Blow, select the cooldown reduction. Then for Gaia Crash, select Frost Cleaving and attack speed increase. Then for Cleaving Moonlight, get consecutive use, effect accumulation, and attack speed increase. Then for Brutal Incision, get the Thundercloud's Bombing. Then for Guillotine Blade, get charges damage and cooldown reduction. Then for Fatal Stigma, get the damage increase. Then for Wheelbreaker, don't select anything. And finally for Da Vinci's Courage, get duration increase. Next we have Weapon Mastery, and this is how it should look like for the greatsword. So get the middle first, then the entire bottom row. And then lastly, go to the top row. And then again, this is how it should look like for the dagger. So this time, get the middle row fully, and then go to the bottom and get this whole thing. Next, let's take a look at our gear, and all of this you can easily farm yourself. If you're interested in how to get these items and the full build guide, then click the link in description to watch my dedicated video on this setup. So we're using Duke Magnus Fury Blade with hit chance, heavy attack chance, and critical hit chance. Next we have Lycoris's Wicked Thorns with hit chance, heavy attack chance, and critical hit chance. Next we have Visor of the Resistance with max health, melee evasion, and ranged evasion. Next we have Supreme Devotion with mana regen, skill damage resistance, and debuff duration. Next we have Plate of the Field General with max health, melee evasion, and buff duration. Next we have Gloomguard Gauntlets with melee evasion, ranged evasion, and added attack speed. Next we have Trousers of the Resistance with max health, ranged evasion, and magic endurance. Next we have Glade Stalker Boots with max health, ranged evasion, and magic endurance. Next we have Clasp of the Conqueror with max health, skill damage boost, and buff duration. Then we have Ancient Saurodama Braces with mana regen, skill damage resistance, and debuff duration. Next we have Violent Signet with max health, skill damage boost, and buff duration. Next we have Amber Dimensional Band with max health, skill damage boost, and buff duration. And finally, we have Belt of Endless Slaughter with skill damage resistance, debuff duration, and max health. Next up, we have the stats, and at the end game, we want to get 50 strength and 50 dexterity. Next, we have our guardian choice, and the best one is the Shade Revenant's Dino. He will shoot projectiles against all enemies around us. And since we're stacking a lot of heavy attack chance, so this guy will boost our damage the most. And now finally, we have come to the gameplay. So the highest damage rotation will be separated into 2 parts. The buff phase and the damage phase. So first of all, we start the rotation by using Da Vinci's Courage, then Thunder Spirit, and then the Lightning Infusion. And then from here, we do big damage by using the Wheelbreaker, Frost Cleaving, Stunning Blow, then Lightning Infusion for the second time, then Fatal Stigma, then Death Blow, then Guillotine Blade, then Thundercloud's Bombing, then Cleaving Moonlight, and then we finish it off with Valiant Brawl. Like I mentioned at the start, if you want a more in-depth look into this build, then feel free to watch my dedicated greatsword and dagger video. So then, for the second build, we have greatsword with sword and shield. This setup will provide us with one of the strongest buffs in the game. As a tank, you'll be redirecting 70% of your teammates' damage to yourself, while at the same time significantly increasing your party's damage. And on top of all this, we will be doing insane amount of damage, as by using specific skills and passives, we'll lower our cooldowns dramatically. If you want to be a melee monster, both as a tank and DPS, then this is the build for you. So let's take a look at our setup. And first of all, we have our skills. So for defensive skill, we use the Shield Survival technique, while for active skills, we get Gaia Crash, Shield Strike, Valiant Brawl, Guillotine Blade, Da Vinci's Courage, Blood Devotion, Provoking Roar, Counter Barrier, Chain Hook, Stalwart Bastion, Strategic Rush, and Willbreaker. Because of specialization skills, we'll have Shield Strike turn into Piercing Strike, then Valiant Brawl will turn into Cruel Smite, and Blood Devotion will turn into Devoted Sanctuary. And then for passive skills, we get Robust Constitution, Vital Force, Indomitable Armor, Resilient Mind, Spectrum of Agony, Aegis Shield, Impenetrable, and Victor's Morale. Next we have Skill Specialization, and for Gaia Crash we select Attack Speed Increase and Critical Hit Chance Increase. Then for Valiant Brawl we get Cruel Smite, Damage Increase, and Aggro Increased. For Da Vinci's Courage, get Duration Increase, Damage Reduction, and Instant Healing. Then for Provoking Roar, get Effect Duration and Cooldown Speed. Then for Chain Hook and Strategic Rush, don't get anything. Then for Shield Strike, get Piercing Strike and Aggro Increased. For Guillotine Blade, select Charges Damage and Cooldown Reduction. Then for Blood Devotion, get all 4 of these. So Devoted Sanctuary, Duration Increased, Damage Transfer Increase, and Damage Increase. Then for Counter Barrier, get Cooldown and Damage Increase. For Stalwart Bastion, don't select anything. And finally, for Willbreaker, get Damage Area Change. Next we have Weapon Mastery, and this is how it should look like for the sword and shield. So take a look at the middle and get everything. Then now go to the bottom and get this one node. And now finally go to the top row and get this entire thing. And then again, this is how it should look like for the greatsword. So you start in the middle and only get this one node. Then now go to the bottom and get that entire row. And now lastly, we go to the top and select everything from range defense until overcome snare. Next, let's take a look at our gear, and all of this you can easily farm yourself. If you're interested in how to get these items and the full build guide, then click the link in description to watch my dedicated video on this setup. So first off, we're using Karnik's Netherblade with traits like Max Health, Hit Chance, and Heavy Attack Chance. Next we have Duke Magnus Provoking Warblade with traits like Max Health, Hit Chance, and Heavy Attack Chance. Next we have the Gloomguard Gauntlet with Max Health, Melee Evasion, and Cooldown Speed. Next we have Supreme Devotion with Mana Regen, Skill Damage Resistance, and Debuff Duration. Next we have Shock Commander Plate Armor with Max Health, Melee Evasion, and Ranged Evasion. Next we have Gloomguard Gauntlets with Mana Regen, Melee Evasion, and added attack speed. Next we have Gloomguard Greaves with Mana Regen, Melee Evasion, and Debuff Duration. Next we have Gloomguard Sabatons with Mana Regen, Melee Evasion, and Ranged Evasion. Next up we have Clasp of the Conqueror with Max Health, Skill Damage Boost, and Buff Duration. Next we have the Ancient Saurodama Braces with Mana Regen, Skill Damage Resistance, and Debuff Duration. Next we have Etched Alabaster Band with Max Health, Skill Damage Boost, and Buff Duration. Next we have the Amber Dimensional Band with Max Health, Skill Damage Boost, and Buff Duration. And finally we have the Belt of Endless Slaughter with Max Health, Skill Damage Resistance, and Debuff Duration. Next up we have the stats, and at the end game we want to get 70 Strength, 30 Dexterity, and 30 Perception. Next we have our Guardian choice, and the best option is the Shade Revenant's Thino. This Guardian has the highest damage in the game, as he can launch projectiles every second that can crit and heavy attack. And as we are already tanky, so this is a simple way to get more DPS. And now finally we have come to the gameplay. As this setup is versatile, so I'll give you 3 different rotations for 3 different objectives. So first off, we have the opening rotation. And at the beginning of every fight, you want to start by activating Da Vinci's Courage, and then use the Piercing Strike, Devoted Sanctuary, Provoking Roar, Willbreaker, Gaia Crash, Guillotine Blade, Piercing Strike again, and then finish it off with Cruel Smite. Next we have Single Target Burst rotation. And this one we start by using Gaia Crash, Guillotine Blade, Piercing Strike, and then finish it off with Cruel Smite. And now finally for the last one, we have our defensive rotation. So for high defense, we just simply use Provoking Roar and then Willbreaker. Like I mentioned at the start, if you want a more in-depth look into this build, then feel free to watch my dedicated Sword and Shield and Greatsword video. And now for the last and final build, we have Greatsword and Crossbow. This setup is very unique, because by using Vital Force and Cold Warrior, we will increase our skill damage by a massive amount. Our main build's focus is on the Mortal Mark skill, because when it gets activated, we'll see huge damage numbers. Also, we will stack very high amounts of heavy attack chance, hit, and skill damage boost, while also having big HP and DPS numbers. If you're looking for the best and most versatile melee bruiser build, then here it is. So let's take a look at our setup. And first of all, we have our skills. And for defensive skill, we use the Iron Point Parry, while for active skills, we get Da Vinci's Courage, Selfless Diffusion, Mortal Mark, Stunning Blow, Merciless Barrage, Quickfire, Mother Nature's Protest, Ascending Slash, Guillotine Blade, Valiant Brawl, Weak Point Shot, and Death Blow. Because of specialization skills, we'll have Mortal Mark turn into Detonation Mark, then Merciless Barrage will turn into Wild Barrage, and finally Valiant Brawl will turn into Cruel Smite. And then for passives, we want to go with Robust Constitution, Vital Force, Cold Warrior, Victor's Morale, Nature's Power, Piercing Strike, Bloodlust, and Ambidexterity. Next we have Skill Specialization, and for Da Vinci's Courage, don't select anything. Then for Mortal Mark, get Detonation Mark. For Merciless Barrage, get Annihilation Barrage Shot and Gale. For Mother Nature's Protest, get Lightning Arrow. Then for Guillotine Blade, get all three, so Charges Damage, Cooldown Reduction, and AoE Damage. Next we have Weak Point Shot, and for this, we select Cooldown. Then for Selfless Diffusion, get Aggression. For Stunning Blow, get Cooldown Reduction and Damage Increase. For Quickfire, get Minimum Chain Fire and Cooldown. For Ascending Slash, get Damage Increase and Cooldown Reduction. Then for Valiant Brawl, get Cruel Smite and Damage Increase. And finally, for Death Blow, get Cooldown Reduction. Next we have Weapon Mastery, and this is how it should look like for the crossbow. So take a look at the middle and get everything. And then go to the bottom and get that entire row as well. And then again, this is how it should look like for the Greatsword. So pretty much the same thing. At the start, get everything in the middle, and then go to the bottom and get that entire row. Next, let's take a look at our gear, and all of this you can easily farm yourself. If you're interested in how to get these items and the full build guide, then click the link in description to watch my dedicated video on this setup. So first off, we are using the Rex Chimero's crossbow with traits like heavy attack chance, critical hit chance, and added attack speed. Next we have Duke Magnus Fury Warblade with hit chance, heavy attack chance, and critical hit chance. Next we have Visor of the Resistance with max health, melee evasion, and ranged endurance. Next we have Supreme Devotion with mana regen, skill damage resistance, and debuff duration. Next we have Shadow Harvester Tunic with magic evasion, ranged evasion, and buff duration. Next we have Shadow Harvester Grips with max mana, mana regen, and magic evasion. Next we have Breeches of the Executioner with magic evasion, ranged evasion, and debuff duration. Next we have Soul Mirror Boots with movement speed, magic endurance, and ranged endurance. Next up we have Collar of Decimation with max health, skill damage boost, and buff duration. Next we have Bracers of the Primal King with max health, skill damage resistance, and debuff duration. Next we have Violent Signet with max health, skill damage boost, and buff duration. And finally we have Belt of the Midnight Hunt with weaken resistance, skill damage resistance, and debuff duration. Next up we have the stats, and at the endgame we want to get 30 strength, 70 dexterity, and 30 perception. Next we have our Guardian choice, and for our build, the best option is the Shade Revenant's Tino. This Guardian launches projectiles every second that can crit and heavy attack. Since our build is already tanky, so this is a great way we can get easy and high damage. And now finally we have come to the gameplay. So our main rotation is to use Da Vinci's Courage, then Cruel Smite, then Selfless Diffusion, then Mortal Mark, then Stunning Blow, then Quickfire, then Wild Barrage, then Ascending Slash, then Guillotine Blade, then Death Blow, and now we finally finish it off with Cruel Smite. If you want a more in-depth look into this build, then feel free to watch my dedicated Greatsword and Crossbow video. And that's about it. So if you enjoyed this video, click like, subscribe, and comment. If you're interested in more content, check out my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. So take it easy, peace!